Hello boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. Today what we're gonna do is we're gonna implement Firebase phone authentication into our Flutter application. This is the application that we have created. I will show somewhere over here. So when you open the app, it will show two buttons: login with Google and login with phone number. So if you click on login with phone number, it will show two text field, one for country code and one for phone number. So as I've entered the phone country code and the phone number, click on the submit, then the SMS code will be sent to my phone number, and I'm redirected. I can enter the SMS code that I've just received. If I enter the SMS code, it will take me to the home. Before you begin, you might want to check my previous video. I will link the video over somewhere over here or down in the description. Along with it, I think if you are new here, I think you can still continue watching this video and understand what I'm doing. So I'm going to be splitting the Firebase phone authentication implementation into our Flutter application into two parts. First part will be done using only the stateful widget. I think it will be much simpler and easier for beginner to understand. And second, I will implement the Firebase phone authentication using the Bloc as state management. I would like to show you the actual implementation or the actual method that needs to be called on Firebase for the phone authentication. It's called Firebase auth.instance.verify phone number. So it needs a phone number. There are 4 callback methods. You have to implement those callback method into your application as a business logic or as a way to update your UI. So first one is verification completed. This method will be called when I think it will only happen on Android devices. Google has implemented in such a way that you don't need to go through the SMS verification. For iOS application, I don't think this one will be called anytime. And second one is verification failed. If there's any kind of exception during the verify phone number method is being called, then this method will be executed. This callback will happen and you have to handle the exception over here. And third one is code send. This happens whenever Firebase sends a SMS to your mobile number, or this number I should say, and you can apply the logic over here. What most people do is change the UI from phone number acceptance to the UI where you can enter the incoming SMS or the verification code. Fourth and the last one is code auto retrieval timeout. And code retrieval timeout is usually Firebase auth verify phone number is constantly looking for the incoming SMS for auto retrieval of the SMS. So if we can assign a timeout duration in using another field called timeout, so during that time it will look for the SMS, and once the auto retrieval is over, then what should happen, and you should define over here. So without further ado, let's begin the intro. Okay, so for our Firebase phone auth using Flutter, I like to go through the prerequisite first. You should have a Firebase project, a configure app in your Firebase project. What I mean by app is the app setting up your Android, iOS or web implementation. Download the JSON and plist JSON or the plist file depending on which device you are testing. Place the download files into your Flutter project. I think the configuration you need to know about this one, and you need to add the dependency of Firebase into your application as well. That will be Firebase auth and Firebase core, and enable the Firebase app in run app. So with your Firebase application, you have to initialize it as well. And finally, if you are using Bloc, then you have add the dependency of Flutter Bloc and Equitable into your PubSec YAML as well. So the best resource for learning how to configure your Flutter application with the Firebase will be on the firebase.flutter.dev. Their documentation is much more suitable or much more oriented towards the Flutter app developers. If you go into my GitHub link, I have created a branch called Phone Authentication and Phone Auth Bloc. So go into the phone authentication, go into our login. You will see the login phone number view. If you click that, it's a stateless widget whose body has a stateful widget. So there's nothing special over here. It's a scaffold, app bar, icon, push replacement if the back button is pressed. And into our phone is a stateful widget which has few properties such: is phone number submitted, is code verified, string verification code. So is phone number submitted, this will be set to false by default. It will be set to true if the phone number is submitted to Firebase auth, and this will be true when your code has been verified successfully. And during the verification process, they generate a verification ID. That ID will be linked to their SMS code. In that way, Firebase authenticates a particular user. So this is for holding those values. So if you go over here onto the build section, we have, so if the phone number is not submitted, kindly show the phone number submit widget, otherwise show the code verification widget. Alright, if we go into our phone number submit widget, it's a column whose main axis alignment is center, which has a row main axis alignment is also center, and in its children it has two text fields. First text field entering the country code, so this can hold max length of 3 and it will have a prefix of plus, and it has an outline border. Keyboard type is input type number. Second widget is a size box of width of 10 to create space between the two text fields, and this text field also the keyboard type is number, max length is 10. This is for entering the mobile number. As you can see over here, I am using a controller over here to fetch the number that is entered on the text field. So I have initialized it on init state of our stateful widget, and there's an outline button whose text says submit. Tapping on that button, verify phone number will be called. Our second widget is code verification widget. It's also a column whose main axis alignment is center, and there's only a single text field that has a controller called code number controller. A keyboard type is also a number, max length of 6. Since the OTP we're gonna receive is gonna be of length of 6, it has an input decoration, enter the send code, and some outline input border, and it has also outline button whose text says verify, and upon clicking verify SMS method will be called. Let's check the verify phone number. So it's a simple void method which is asynchronous. So we're gonna create a phone number first. Phone number will be the concatenation of country code and the mobile number for each country code that begins plus. Then I'm printing the phone number here. Then we're gonna call Firebase auth.instance verify phone number. Verify phone number will take the phone number that we have just created, and we're gonna assign some methods over here. On verification completed will go to our on verification completed method. Similarly, verification failed will go to our verification failed, code send to code send, and final code retrieval timeout to code retrieval timeout. So if this method is executed successfully, we're gonna change the is phone number submitted to true and call the set state so that UI gets updated and our widget for submitting the SMS code displays. Third one is verify SMS. Verify SMS will set the is code verified to true using the set state, and it will call the sign in phone number method. Sign in phone number method is somewhere down here. So if we check on our verification completed, so it takes in the credential and it will be called using this credential. We can sign in the user with the credential using this method so that user gets signed in automatically. So if verification failed, I'm not doing much. I'm only showing a scaffold with the exception string, and we're gonna change the is phone number submitted to false once again so that UI gets updated. So, and the third one is code send. Whenever the code is sent, I'm going to change the is phone number submitted to true, and verification code will be the verification ID that we have just received. So we're going to say like OTP has been sent to your mobile number. Then code auto retrieval. I'm not doing much over here. Basically what you can do is you can ask the user to request for the OTP once again. And last, our method is the sign in with phone number. So what happens is you need to get the code that user has just entered, and using the verification ID or verification code that you have received when the code is sent, you can create a credential over here using phone auth provider dot credential. And after that, user credential can be created using the Firebase sign in with credential method, and once the user is successfully created, we can move our page to the home view of our application. Now that we have seen the implementation of Firebase phone authentication into our Flutter application in Stateful widget, let's dive into our same implementation using the Flutter Bloc. Okay, let's look into our code. We'll start with the data layer. In the data layer, if you go to provider, you will see phone auth Firebase provider. So it requires Firebase auth. It has a method called verify phone number, and it requires all the method that needs to be implemented into our Firebase auth verify phone number. It doesn't implement anything over here. All the implementation happens somewhere else. On these particular callbacks, we have certain things to change in our UI, and there's some business logic to be written. So I've moved all the methods to somewhere else, and this method takes those methods as a dependency. And login with SMS verification code. This method will be called when when user tries to verify the code that he has received against his mobile number. So it takes in the verification ID and the SMS code. If everything is successful, then it will get a credential. It will call the get auth credential verification. It has a simple method called return phone auth provider credential, phone auth provider dot credential, that exchange verification ID and verification code, and it will call the authentication with credential. So it's again a helper method that takes in the credential and returns the Firebase user. So if you check our repository class, it has a similar method to our provider class. Most of the time, a repository class has a similar method to your provider classes. It acts as an intermediary between the backend provider classes and to your block. So as you can see over here, it has same method called verify phone number that also takes in all the method as a dependency or a required parameter, and it does not do any business logic over here. It just pass on those value to the provider. Again, we have a method called verify SMS code. It is the same method. It will call the provider to log in with verification code. If the user is not null, we'll create a phone auth model. Phone auth model is a simple model class that we have created that can be understood by our block, and our block doesn't need to understand about the Firebase user. That's why I've created this. So it's a simple model which has an enum of phone auth state. All phone auth state model state could have code send, auto retrieve, error, and or verify. It will hold the verification ID if any verification ID is passed. If it will have verification token, and if the user has successfully logged in, then the UID will be attached along with it. Returns a phone number with verified enum and user ID as user.uid. Similarly, if user is null, then we will set phone auth model state as error. Now we have to do the verify with credential. This will only happen when the callback happens to this method. So it will usually not happen if it's Android device, then it will happen over here. So I'm calling this method whenever there's need to be login with using the verification credential, not with the SMS code. So it will call the authentication with credential with the credential provided, and same thing if user is not null, we'll create a phone auth model with the verified flag and UID as the login user UID, otherwise the error will be generated. Now that we have covered the model, provider, and the repositories, I think it's time to check our block class. So we'll start with the event. First event will be the phone number verified. When user enters the phone number and clicks the submit button, then the user has actually triggered a verification for his phone number. Event name will be phone auth number verified. Onto the second widget, if user has entered the SMS code and click on the verify button, then the second event will be phone auth name of our block, and event will be the code verified. User has clicked the verified method. I have created few additional event that corresponds to the Firebase auth callbacks. For example, code auto retrieval timeout. If timeout has happened, we'll call this event. If code is sent, this event will be triggered, that takes in verification ID and token. And if verification has failed in that callback, then particular event will be called. Similarly, we have a phone auth verification completed. So these 4 events will be corresponding to the callbacks of the Firebase auth verify phone number. So now if we go into our state, we have simple states such as initial, loading, or error, right? Now if phone number verification process has started, then it can have 2 states, right? It could either fail or it could be successful. If it's successful, then it will have a verification ID. If it's a failure, then there will be a failure message. Similarly, if code is sent, code send event is triggered, then if send is event triggered, then we're going to create a new state called phone code send success. Using this event, now the second states will be the code verification as per the code verification. So the SMS code verification could either fail or it could succeed. And we have another event for code auto retrieval timeout. This state is created so that we could display some UI information to the user, like a scaffold or message saying that auto retrieval timeout has been expired and you can reinitiate the phone verification. I have not implemented, but the state is over here. Now we have gone through the state as well. It's time to go into our block class. In the block class, I think the important part will be also this one, phone auth repository. It has a dependency to the repository class. So the first event that will occur is user enters the phone number and clicks on verify. So when this event is triggered, then we're gonna go to our method called phone number verified to. So if you go over here, it's an async generator. That means it will generate the stream of states, phone auth state here particularly. So it is in try catch block. Since we are talking to the network or external devices, there's high chances of error and exceptions. So we are putting this method into the try catch block. We're going to yield the loading state first, then we're going to verify the phone number, and each created our own methods in the block. And if there's any exception, we will yield a phone auth number verification failure with the error message. Now I think we can go to the implementation of each method. Since phone auth number verified will have this event has the phone number. Since this event will be triggered from the UI, the phone number will be carried by this event. Now if you check our code auto retrieval timeout, if this method is called, it will have a verification ID. So and it will call the event called phone auth code auto retrieval timeout. Mentioned it before that each callback of the verified phone number will be associated to the events. So here, as we can see, code auto retrieval method will call the phone auth code auto retrieval timeout. Similarly, the code send will call the event called phone auth code send. All right, and it will have a verification ID and the token number. Similarly, on the verification failure, it will call the event called phone auth verification failed, and will have an exception string. Since verification completed requires the user to be logged in, that's why we are looking for the phone auth model. If phone auth model is verified, then we're gonna call verification has been completed. Now if you go into our main block's main method, map event to state, we can see over here phone code auto retrieval timeout will yield the phone auth code auto retrieval timeout with the verification ID. And code send, once the code is sent successfully, then the state that we're going to be emitted from this class is phone auth number verification success. Since the code is sent to the user, that means the verification of the phone number is successful. In this phone number, what kind of verification we are checking are mostly the length of the numbers. This all are done in the Firebase auth itself. I have not implemented any validation logic into the phone number verification. Next, if the phone verification fail event is triggered, then we're going to yield a state called phone auth number verification failure with the proper message. Similarly, if verification has completed, then we're going to call the phone verification success with the and pass in the UID of the user. And last is the phone auth code verification. This is the SMS verification of the user. So it will also go to the method called phone auth code verified to state. As previous method is also async generator that returns a stream of phone auth states, and it will have the try catch block over here. It will first yield the loading state. After that, it will get the phone auth model from the repository using the verify SMS code. It will pass in the SMS code that user has entered and the verification ID. If that is successful, then it will yield the state called phone auth code verification success with the UID of the user. If there's any exception, we're going to print the exception over here. Similarly, it will yield the phone auth code verification failure with the proper error message and the verification ID. Now the implementation of block is complete. We'll go to the fun part of our application, that is the UI. So if we go on to our phone auth and views, we'll see our login phone number. So this is the main view of our phone number verification. So it's a stateless widget. Since we are working with block, we don't need stateful widget. All the implementation can be done in the stateless widget itself. Like with the stateful management, we have a safe areas, scaffold, app bar, icon button, navigation push replacement to the login main view, and title sync, phone login, and in its body we have a phone auth view builder. So it's again a stateless widget. It has all the text editing controller that is required for the country code, mobile number, and SMS code. In its build method, I have a block consumer that listens to the phone auth block. Based on the phone auth block state, I'm going to do some listening and rebuilding of widget. If you check our listening part, so most of the listening are only done to display the user information or navigating to another pages. So if you could see alright, if the code verification is successful, the SMS that user has entered and that is successful, we're gonna do a navigation push replacement to the home view. Else if If the verification has failed, we're going to show a snack bar to the user, so the user doesn't goes back to another screen. The user will stay onto the same page. So if there is a phone auth error, we're going to show unexpected error occur. If there's a verification failure, we again going to show snack bar. We are not going to change any view. If the number verification is successful, then we should show a snack bar saying that code has been sent successfully on your mobile number. Auto retrieval time is completed, then we can say like something like timeout for auto retrieval is completed. Okay, so if you check on our builder, initially it will have phone auth initial. In its initial, we'll show phone number submit widget. If its phone number verification is successful, then we'll show the code verification widget. Okay, if it's phone number verification failure, then we're going to show the same phone number widget. We're not going to move to code submission widget. If it's code verification is failure, we're going to simply show the code verification widget to the user once again. If none of these states are, the user going to see a empty container. So if you check our phone number submit widget, it's a column, main axis alignment center, to text field with country code controller and input type as number, and phone number controller that will call the verify phone number. We check on code verification widget, that also takes in the contacts, and in its contact it will also take in the verification ID. Since SMS verification is linked with the code user have entered and the verification ID received from the Firebase auth.instance.verify phone number method call. If the verify phone number button is pressed, we're gonna create an event called phone number verified, and we'll pass in the number that user have entered with the concatenation. And similarly on the verify SMS part, we'll call the phone auth code verified with the verification ID and the SMS code that user has entered, and this is the helper function. So since this method uses the phone auth block, we need to provide the phone auth block to this stateless widget. So the providing of this phone auth is written in our login main view. I think it's our login main view. If you go into check our login main view, where we are showing the login with Google button, navigator push replacement, material page route, on its builder is a block provider, on its create we are giving phone auth block. Phone auth block requires a phone auth repository. We have created the repository over here, and repository requires a provider. We have created a provider over here, and the provider requires Firebase auth, which we have given over here, and the UI is login phone number. We have okay, that's it guys. Thank you so much for watching. Link to the source code will be down in the description. If you like the video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And if you have any question, then please don't hesitate to write them in the comment section. I'm pretty much active in the comment section. Okay, thank you so much for watching. See you guys next time.